Congressman Ami Bera, heartiest congratulations on this bipartisan resolution, one that's much needed. Why do you think your resolution recognizing strategic value of historical partnership with India has garnered this kind of strong bipartisan support? Is this the much needed bridge over troubled water?
I think it is. I was in India leading a congressional delegation in September, and we saw, the bumps in the road. Some of the comments that President Trump has made in recent months was creating some heartburn in India. And I thought it was very important for us as members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, a different branch of government, to express our sentiment of the strong importance of the U.S.-India relationship, that nothing's changed from the congressional perspective.
So from some within the Trump administration, whether it's Peter Navarro, Kevin Hassett, to even the MAGA rhetoric against Indian diaspora, do you think the US-India relationship is going through a rough patch because of certain elements and their objectionable remarks against India, all of whom are associated with the Trump administration? Could that have been avoided?
Sure. I think there are a few folks like Peter Navarro within the Trump administration that may be leading the president astray. All indications are the president and the prime minister still have a very strong personal relationship. And also, again, from the congressional perspective, nothing has changed in our 30-year strategy. Going back to Bill Clinton, we recognize the strategic importance, the economic importance, the partnership between the United States and India. And we wanted to make sure we sent a clear message to the government of India, but to the people of India, that from the United States Congress's perspective, nothing has changed.
Also, Congressman, do you see the U.S. role as a peacemaker or a facilitator during Op Sindoor? Because President Trump's remarks on ending the conflict between India and Pakistan has been a major irritant in this relationship. It has also significantly impacted the bilateral relationship between New Delhi and Washington.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it the way the president did. I think at the end of the day, this ceasefire was negotiated between India and Pakistan. Now, America may have had a supporting role, and I think America should play a supporting role, but any lasting peace between India and Pakistan is going to be negotiated between the two countries.
Let's talk about trade. India has signaled a significant progress on India-US trade pact, but has also stressed the need for fair and balanced deal. Do you think President Trump is using trade as a foreign policy tool for leverage, and that's doing more harm than good, not just to the world economy, but to the US economy as well?
I think how the president's approach tariffs and trade has created some uncertainty, whereas the United States has always been fairly predictable. When I was in India in September, obviously there were the talks about 50% tariffs. I think that's at a better place right now, and my hope would be that we can actually finally get a US-India trade deal. That's been incredibly elusive in my 13 years in Congress, but it does seem like we're relatively close, and I think that would then give certainty to U.S. companies that are making big investments in India, but also to Indian companies that are making big investments in the United States.
All right, Quad is the elephant in the room at the moment. Trump's recent silence on the Quad suggests the Indo-Pacific is no longer a priority, even more so after the recent G2 summit in Busan. There's renewed confusion about whether the U.S. even sees China as a strategic competitor and global rival. Is U.S. President undermining India's strategic relevance, especially when it comes to the Indo-Pacific?
Again, I think the president is getting bad advice from folks within his administration. The Quad is incredibly important to the Indo-Pacific strategy, to maritime security. I had a chance to visit with Western Naval Command when I was in India. We're still doing joint military exercises. Our defense-to-defense relationship is incredibly important. Again, that's part of the reason to do this bipartisan resolution at this moment in time. Nothing has changed from the members of Congress in terms of how we view the United States and India. We're in active conversation with our Senate counterparts to introduce a companion piece of legislation, signaling the same thing from the Senate. And we'll continue to get Democrats and Republicans to support this resolution. So again, I'm not exactly sure who's advising the president, but the Quad is incredibly important.
Congressman, we speak at a time when India is confronted with a new resurgent form of terrorism, especially after 10/11. How can US aid India in its fight against terrorism?
Part of the reason why we specifically included, going back to the Mumbai terror attacks, as well as what we saw this April and now what we saw in November, it's incredibly important for the United States and India to work together on the counterterrorism front. We've seen the horrific attacks in April, and we've got to work together here. So again, that's why we specifically put that in the resolution as well.
I just want to expand a bit more on this resolution about the fight against terrorism. Given India and US are strategic partners, you think that the US has done enough when it comes to condemning Pak-sponsored terrorism or to join India's fight against terrorism that actively?
I think we should be more strong in our rhetoric. I think we should talk about this. I do have concerns of some of the comments that the president has made with regards to Pakistan. These are not equivalent countries. Our relationship with India is core to our Indo-Pacific strategy. Obviously, we'll have relations with Pakistan, but they're not an economic partner. They're not a strategic partner. We see the number of cross-border terror attacks that are coming from Pakistan. And Pakistan has its own internal instability with their own domestic terror threats. So we have to work closely with India. We have to work closely with our intelligence and counterterrorism units, again, to combat terror within India, but also the threats in the entire region.
Congressman, the Indian diaspora in the US, now over 5 million strong, has been a bridge of talent, entrepreneurship, and cultural diplomacy. Yet recent restrictions on work permits, H-1B visas, and green card processing have frayed that bridge. Is liberalizing skilled migration a need of the hour for this bilateral relationship to flourish further?
Absolutely. We've seen the success of the Indian American diaspora. My parents, immigrated to the United States from Gujarat in the 1950s, and we've seen a generation of Indian Americans, doctors, technology workers, in business leaders, major CEOs. The success of the diaspora in living the American dream has been remarkable. We should want to expand that. Again, I'm not sure who advised the president on the $100,000 fee on the H-1Bs. That is bad policy. You started to see the president start to walk back some of that in terms of understanding that we need those skilled workers here. Perhaps, when we were in India, we've talked about creating maybe a different category of workers. If US companies are partnering with Indian companies on AI, on others in the pharmaceutical sector, we should allow our executives and our talent to move back and forth without having to go through this process. So It might be an opportunity for us to rethink something.
All right. Many thanks to you, Congressman Ami Bera. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Let's hope the kind of support that this bipartisan resolution has garnered, it also reflects in the bilateral relationship between New Delhi and Washington. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.